I'd like to introduce Andre Costin, and this is Ghost in the Air.
Hello, everybody. My name is Andre Costin, and I'll be presenting Ghost in the Air traffic. And thank you for coming to this talk. I know it's the last one. Please bear with me till the end. Hopefully, you'll not regret it. A few words about myself. I'm software hardware security researcher, a PhD candidate, and some of my stuff and research include MFAC, my very classic toolkit, some printers and PostScript research. And if you ask yourself, it wasn't me who was doing the stuff 1 month back to your corporate printers, wasting your paper. And more recently, for a year and so, I have some special interest for avionics and some related technologies. And you can check my papers or security advisories on my site. Some disclaimer, I'll read the short version, but do not try this at home, and everything you do, it's on your own risk and responsibility. And some Blackhat administrative, please submit and complete the feedback forms. Highly appreciated, thank you. Okay, so in today's session, we'll just go through the following topics, like a short introduction to ATC, and we'll try to check some of the ATC problems. ATC stands for Air Traffic Control. Then we'll go to ADSB, which is the new technology introduced in ATC. Then we'll try to look at some ADSB threats posed from ADSB side to ATC as a whole system. Then some sample, if maybe imaginary or real life scenarios, and maybe we'll discuss some possible solutions and we'll present some takeaways. Okay, so ATC, as it stands today, it stands for Air Traffic Control, and it's used for managing all the air traffic, including on the ground, in the air, and its main target is basically airborne traffic. And it has a long history, and for the last couple of decades, it's been mostly human-oriented in its functionality, meaning that despite the technology being involved, like radars and all the communication links, most of the things are still being done manually, and through human interaction of air traffic controllers to pilots and vice versa, checking some printed output from the flight plans, flight tracks, and so on. And despite the fact that it might seem sometimes like a rocket science, or it might seem like a very complex juggling stuff, these guys still try to do a tremendous amount of work, but it showed in the last decades that human error is a very important safety factor. And basically, they are trying to keep up with the technology and move from the human-oriented to technology-oriented air traffic management and air traffic surveillance. Okay, so we'll just take a quick look of how radars work, because radars are the main technology used for air traffic control surveillance, meaning that the way to discover air traffic in the air. And without ADSB, which is the new technology, and I'll be presenting later on the slides, without ADSB, currently it's working at 2 levels. Basically, there is a primary surveillance radar named PSR, and which is a well-known technology, a very old military technology, which sends an electromagnetic beam to the sky. It's the antenna you see rounding and the airport. And basically, the received signal is like backscatter of or reflection from object, and if it's big enough, it's most likely it's some big object up in the sky, which is most probably an airplane. Then into picture comes SSR, which is a secondary surveillance radar. Basically, with the help, from the information from the primary surveillance radar, the secondary sends digital interrogation to the airplane. So basically, it's soliciting a reply or a code. And then the airplanes have devices which are called SSR transponder. And basically, this device comes into picture, and they reply with the specific code of the airplane or code of the transponder. So basically, the first one is non-cooperative, meaning that airplane or aircraft doesn't have to cooperate to scatter back the electromagnetic wave, whilst in the second phase, SSR is interactive or solicited based. The idea is that solicitation are done via two ways, via transponders or voice commands, where transponders are malfunctioning or not possible. And basically, it's again, it's a soliciting procedure, and some data as part of a generated reply on the SSR are aircraft address, altitude, aircraft code, and some sensor like roll and track angles. This is how very simple transponder looks like, and basically you can see above there's the VHF voice communication, very high frequency communication. Basically, you can listen to ATC voice stuff, and there's even sites online which you can sniff this for you, and you can listen online. And below the white one is the actual transponder, which in current position or current configuration it basically is configured to reply with code 1200 to the air traffic control center. This is how a typical secondary surveillance radar display looks like at air traffic control displays and software. It's not very sophisticated. You can see some tracking and some data automatically or manually assigned as meta information to the objects in the sky by the ATC crew and ATC hardware and software. Okay, as it stands now, it seems that even with current technology, I mean without the new ADS-B system, there are still some problems in ATC, meaning that in some manuals they have very clear facts that inputs are not robust enough, meaning that an intentional or unintentional input mistake can basically lead to the fact that ATC might not be able to see your aircraft, which is bad, because ATC should be able to see all the aircrafts all the time, and or it might confuse with another, which is again bad, because it should know uniquely and at any given point in time every aircraft, who it is and where it goes to, in order to provide the necessary regulatory safety. And also it can affect like TCAS, which is traffic collision avoidance systems, meaning that the airplanes might get confusing inputs both from devices and both from the ATC tower in case there is a collision possibility. So basically they'll get very bad input, so both will go up and will have a collision up, or both will go down and have a collision down. So inputs are not very robust, and some other like manuals state that don't add any leading zeros, hyphens, dashes, or spaces to the flight ID, which raises us to the question why there is such a restriction, and in the first place, why is there possibility for inputting these kinds of characters, and why there is a restriction? Is this kind of SQL injection type of possibility out there, or do they have some legacy systems which are prone to non-robust input handling, which is another issue? Then input mistakes, again, intentional or unintentional, can have severe implication, especially in safety or in procedure they basically trigger. And as you can see, there is a manual which says that if you squawk the code 777, it's a military interception operation code, and it's capitals never squawk this code, but they actually allow you. So basically, intentionally or unintentionally, you can squawk this code, and some procedure can be triggered. Or there's other examples which you can see highlighted, that to reach a specific code, you should follow a given pattern. Otherwise, if you switch the dials in a wrong manner, you could, by mistake, squawk code 7300, which is hijacking, or so on and so on. or 7700, which is emergency. So these factors combined with like a stress situation, imagine a stress situation where an aircraft is having a trouble and the pilots have to be very, concentrated on the avoiding safety problem. They have to remember which dial to switch first in order not to squawk the wrong code, which is, again, not very wise. Okay, so ATC as stands now, it has some, let's say, more or less input problems. I mean, everything is still safe and it works. There's no doubt about this, but you clearly can see that there are some flaws. What ATC is foreseen to be looking like is it's called next generation ATC ATM, which is air traffic control, air traffic management, and E-enabled aircrafts. So basically, you can see that from airport ABC down to the airport XYZ, the plane takes various phases like terminal area, en route over ocean or hard-to-reach areas, again en route and terminal areas. And along this route, it passes various technologies like radar, multilateration, and data communication stations and grounds. And basically, the aircrafts are being foreseen to, they are currently doing some part of it, but on legacy technology, but it's foreseen that there will be more technology improvements and more bandwidth available. So the interesting part which we care about is the middle one, where it says broadcast data link between aircrafts and ground, example ADSB. Basically, this is where some of the airplane to the ground communication, and on top right, there's a green circles, broadcast inter-aircraft. So basically, aircrafts can also communicate not only by voice, but with some data links between them. Okay, so what is a ADSB? From non-technical point of view, is basically a multi-billion worldwide effort from 2006. And this is a screenshot from US government IT dashboard spending. And as it stands now, from 2006 till now, they spend like $1.1 billion on this in USA alone. And expected similar figures to be in Eurocontrol zone and Australian, which are the pioneers in experimenting with this technology. It was like chosen to be a playground for this. However, despite the big budget, is literally unmatched security, in the sense that if you look on the requirements and specification of this technology and search for the word security, you have 0 matches. Basically, it's unmatched security. And it's a little bit bad because safety you can still find in that requirements and specification, but no words about security of the technology itself. So how does ADSB work? In general, it's the idea is that let's say there are 2 aircraft and they communicate with GPS, GLONASS, or Galileo kind of positioning systems. They get their precise coordinates. They use a barometric altimeter to get their precise altitude, because GPS doesn't provide very good accuracy on height or altitude. And then basically what they use, they transmit some data. And as you can see, they have ADSB out. Basically, it means that both aircraft send information to the ADSB ground station. Okay, and the ground station itself is connected to ATC facility. Basically, the ground station is like a big antenna or pole or something, which is connected by a data link connection to ATC tower. Also, the aircrafts can communicate between them using ADSB in, which means that basically aircraft A can send ADSB messages to the another aircraft. Okay, and the very high level format of the data is it's either 56 bits or 112 bits, and in general the most information is contained in the 112 bits frame. And I'll discuss a little bit down the road, but it has some address, which is basically like a hardware MAC address of the airplane, but it's like some international organization assigned address of the aircraft. It's unique, or it should be unique. Some parity, and the ADSB payload itself. So you can see this is a very simple frame format. It has some error detection correction, but it doesn't have any like security, as we'll see down rows, like signature or encryption and so on. So ADSB inside out, what it means is basically most of the ADSB out, meaning that aircraft sending ADSB messages are already implemented. And by ADSB out, you can an airplane basically broadcasts position, velocity, flight ID, and various other geographic altitude, and many other parameters, which might be interesting for ATC towers or other airplanes to process that data. ADSB in is mostly still in testing or development because it's a more challenging mode, because basically the aircraft have to exchange data between themselves. They are very quickly passing through by each other, and there's like very short time of communication, so to speak. And there's also some other problems, like aircraft do not have fiber optics like connection, and there's a lot of implications about this. They cannot like check the data which it receives from other aircraft and so on. So basically it's still being in development testing. And these ADSB messages, they are basically transmitted on 2 frequencies. The most used one is 1090 megahertz, and the newer frequency they are trying to somehow move the load from 1900 to 978 megahertz. And basically the ground stations or the ATC tower, they interrogate the airplane sending an interrogation on frequency 1030 megahertz. So basically it's interrogation, but all the data from aircraft, they are broadcasting in clear text, non-secure, non-encrypted, on 1090 and 978. Okay, so this is a screenshot from some aviation agencies. This is from Australia. You can see basically Australia is mostly covered by this technology. It's almost close to 100% coverage. So the technology there is very widespread, and they have a 2013 mandate to all the planes to be compliant to this technology, at least ADSB out. On the US side, they also have a map, and basically I think it mostly resembles the flight patterns across US, where the most flights are being concentrated, and basically they have like 300 or something ADSB ground stations, which, okay, by publishing exact location of where this ground station is not a very good choice, because anybody can go and, you know, do some attacks, some remote attacks on these ground stations. Okay, how does ADSB look like from a user's perspective or from the community? Like you as a simple user, you don't care maybe about ADSB messages, security or non-security, but how it looks like for you as a simple user. So basically there are various sites. Okay, there are various applications, and of course there are several sites which you can go and basically see online in real time all the airplanes which broadcast their information, and some users in various geographic areas, they capture this broadcast and they publish them online in real time. So you can see that in real time they show which aircraft, where it's being positioned, where it's being directed, and so on. So basically there's a lot of public information, which in a sense is not very bad, but in other sense it can pose some privacy issues. Like, for example, you know a specific aircraft address, or you have a specific flight ID you want to track. So easily, without any hardware, just logging in online, you can do this. So, and also some of the experimental features, they somehow try to show you a 3D view, like how it looks from the cockpit of the pilot. So you see that it's quite advanced. Sorry? Well, you cannot watch real time because the data is static on the Google Maps. So, I mean, the data on the Google Maps is not real time updated. You cannot see the real time view, but you get, I mean, the terrain at least, the vision of the terrain. So how the community gets all this, let's say, all this data you see a lot of airplanes. So there must be a lot of users submitting that information, and these users have to be geographically positioned in various areas so they can have a wide geographic coverage of receiving this broadcast in clear text from the airplanes. So basically you can go either buy or build yourself a device, and these are examples of most known or most used devices by the community and the users or ham radio amateurs, and they vary from in price from 100 euro to 500 euro depending on the features and ease of configuring or installation or network integration. But if you do them yourself, they can be maybe 20 euros or so on. It requires some soldering skills, but it's not, I mean, if you're very interested in this, you can do this. So some technical aspects is how does an ADSB frame look like? Is basically the frames are being encoded in pulse position modulation, which is PPM, and the idea is that if one pulse or one bit is 1 microsecond, and as you can see, for example, when in the middle it's a low to high transition, it's a 0 bit. For example, if you look in the second red section, there's 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. So basically the first bit is 0 because it has a low to high transition, and the second bit is 1 because it has high to low transition. And again, 0 is because low to high, and it's 1 because it's high to low, and it's 1 because it's high to low. And basically that's a 55-bit frame, and the first group is basically, I'll explain a little bit later what it is. It's a shared medium broadcast. It doesn't have any specification for collision avoidance or collision detection, meaning that if two aircrafts exactly at the same time broadcast, there is basically no provision to detect this or correct or avoid. But I mean, they can sometimes resynchronize or send at a different interval, and the receiver will receive later the frames. But again, if two frames are quite critical to be received, and they are sent at the very same time, with a collision, and the receiver, meaning the ATC tower, cannot understand neither of this frame, which are both garbled because they collided and the bits are mangled. Okay, so the format, the higher level format, is basically, as you can see, it's composed of a preamble. It's 8 bits long, meaning 8 microseconds, and it's not PPM modulated. It's just some pattern in order for the transmitter and receiver to synchronize, so that the receiver knows when a possible ADSB frames come to it. So we can detect where to start PPM demodulation. So this, you can see 4 spikes, which is 8, and basically it's an 8-bit long synchronization. Then it follows the data block, which can be 56 bits or 2 bits. And both of these formats, if a long or short, must have 24 bits ICAO address, meaning International Civil Aviation Organization, something like this. And they assign unique addresses to each of the airplanes, which are globally registered. And also there is a mandatory 24-bit parity, which helps in detecting errors and maybe correcting some of the bits. But again, this parity is not a hash. It's not a secure hashing. It's not intended to verify that this message is secure or is not being tampered with or is being sent by a legitimate aircraft. So meaning that this parity can be computed by any attacker anytime on any frame. Okay, so let's look at some possible threats for ADSB. And basically the threats described here are not, let's say, not quite new, and it's not our, let's say, sole discovery, because surprisingly there have been a lot of literature on ADSB security, but mostly it was been theoretical or academical, and for some reason it has been dismissed by the industry or not being implemented for some reason we don't know. And you'll see we have in our white paper 60 very interesting references And basically almost all of these are standards or paper which discuss this threat in quite of the detail. But our idea was to put up easy to mount attack and to show how easy and how non-expensive compared to the 1 billion expenditure is to mount an attack, as you'll see down at the end of this presentation. So one of the threats, or one of the most important threats is entity and message authentication, meaning that in the ADSB protocol and in ADSB messages, there's basically no provision to authenticate, to make sure that the message is, first of all, genuine, not being generated or tampered by an attacker, and second, there is no provision to verify that the message was sent by a true aircraft. What it means, it has two wide implications. It means that any attacker can pretend to be an aircraft. And second, any attacker can craft any message because there is no authentication on the message itself. So given that any attacker can be any aircraft and can send any kind of frame on the air, you can see that the attack surface is quite big and it's not very hard to mount. It's only 112 bits to generate. If you know how to generate, which we'll show down the road, it's basically an open opportunity, an inviting opportunity, better to say, for any attacker having medium technical knowledge to do the attack. Another thing is that there is no entity authorization, meaning that because there is no authentication, you cannot be sure which aircraft or whether the message is being transmitted by a true aircraft with address X. You don't have entity authorization, meaning that you cannot enforce or say that this aircraft should not transmit these messages. Because normally an aircraft is being authorized in the first place, so if it has an ADSB transmitter, it's authorized to send messages. But because there is no authentication, you cannot verify that this is a true aircraft. So authorization is like a consequence failure. That's why it's a warning. Entity temporary identifier or privacy, basically as in the case of GSM, to make a parallel, because IMSI is a very important thing, they somehow came up with TIMSI, right, if you are familiar with it. So TIMSI is like a temporary identifier for your SIM card. However, in ADSB, there is no temporary identifier. So basically, all the addresses are in clear text, and they are globally unique. So you can basically know and track aircrafts. And again, it doesn't sound very interesting to track normal airline aircrafts, but as I'll show down the road, think about private jets. Like I'll show a scenario where, for example, if you have private jets, it can be a privacy issue. There is no message integrity, meaning that basically an attacker can do whatever he wants or she wants to the message, tamper or generate, and there is no possibility to check that this message was tampered with, because the attacker can change the parity bits or error code bits in such a way that the message is valid and is looking very okay, and you cannot say it was tampered or not. Okay, message freshness, meaning that an attacker can take a packet from the air, store it, and then continuously just replay. And there is no provision for the messages to be always fresh, meaning that there is no challenge response protocol. And why is bad? Because, again, a very non-sophisticated attacker can just capture the radio frequency traffic and keep replaying it indefinitely, putting how to say, a Hawk's Day aircraft in the air traffic control, right? Sorry. Okay, and there's no encryption, meaning that there's no provision to encrypt the information set, and which is very clear. So, in a sense, you can compare all these failures in the protocol design with all read-write access with guests as admin enable, meaning that basically everybody can read and write these kind of messages, and they have like admin-like power because they can do everything in ADSB protocol on this frequency. However, it seems that there exist mitigations for these problems. First of all, which is encryption, and second, possibly a message and entity signature and authentication. But unfortunately, this information is not very public, and it seems it's being used only by the military. And some of the hints is the mode 4, mode 5, IFF, which means identify friend or foe, crypto applique, which is a specification for this technology. And basically, it's a 2 levels crypto secured version of mode S and ADSB GPS position. So there is provision for a secure technology for ADSB messages or ADSB protocol, but for some reason, and for some obvious reason, which I'll be listing down, it's kept for military uses, but it's bad that they do not adapt it to the commercial air traffic, which is most of air traffic currently in the world. And basically, it uses black and red keys cryptography, and basically, the whole idea is that it's very, the overhead is very big to manage the red keys, which in turns are used to encrypt and so on the black keys. So that's why they don't want to release this to the commercial airlines, because once the red keys are released, then the whole crypto model is somehow affected. I'm not a crypto expert, but it's the thing which looks like. Okay, so how can ADSB be exploited? To understand how it can be exploited, first we need to understand the adversary, because understanding the adversary, we understand how they can approach the exploitation. So first, by role, what it means is basically we somehow try to define roles in the systems, and basically you can have pilots which can attack this protocol, and I'm not saying that pilots do this, but for them it is the easiest because they have access to the ADSB transponders and technology, and it can be both intentional or unintentional. And there can be pranksters, and as I'll show you down one slide, some pilots actually fall intentionally or unintentionally, we cannot verify this, in the prankster category, and it's not very good in general for safety and for the air traffic. I'll just show the example in 1 second. There can be abusive users or organizations, meaning that there can be like privacy breachers like paparazzi, one scenario which I'll be discussing, and also there can be some militant or message conveyors which can abuse this technology, but it's less likely. Most likely it will be privacy breachers to use it for some monetary gain or some other gains. Of course, criminals, and most likely they'll do it for money, and less likely it is for terror, because there were no known cases. But a very important emphasis which I would like to say is that for criminals whose intent is money, do not underestimate the potential of the underground for-hire services. And the idea is that it can be a very profitable business for criminals to invest small amount of money in software-defined radios and place them around the world, and then start hiring those software-defined radios in underground forums to get revenue on this. And you might ask why they would like to basically give them for hire. Think GSM sniffing and people tracking or message injection in ADSB. So it's a very potential business, and basically software-defined radios for hire can be a very profitable one. So I would not dismiss this, and this might be a potential for the future. And of course, there are our old friends from military and intelligence agencies, which can abuse for various reasons this technology. So this is an example of internal prankster attack, meaning that internal, it's the pilot in the system who do intentional or unintentional prankster attack. You can see on the first column that these are basically flight IDs and call signs input in the system by the pilots during some of their flights. And you can see like there are some sexually connotation messages, some are, you know, some funny messages, and you can look them up and you can, I mean, I'm not intending to go down by those pilots, but the idea is that these things occur even now. So it's a clear thing that this technology kind of thing, clear text and internal attackers can abuse it. You can see they have vote no or vote something else and, you know, get a job and so on. So they can convey a message, make a call for action or so on a communication channel which is not very easy to see, but still people who know how to see this will read the message. Okay, external criminals, it's similar to internal pranksters, and basically the idea is, as I'll show in the demo, because all of these fields can be modified to a certain degree by the attacker, actually these fields can be used to encode various commands or information requests, and basically in a very Hollywood-style scenario, which I'm not trying to convey, but I'm just trying to say that it might be possible for these fields to be used in a kind of a botnet scenario, where these fields are used for requesting information and getting information back from other planes affected by, let's say, the potential botnet. I mean, it's a scenario which sounds futuristic, but I mean, if you do a security assessment, it's a very important thing to keep all the possibilities inside. Okay, another example is the external abusers and like privacy breachers and paparazzis combined with public data correlation. Public data or big data is a very strong thing. And for example, this is a depiction of a scenario where you have a bunch of paparazzis. They have a well-defined target, a star, for example, and there is some Cannes festival where a lot of stars come on their private jets. And basically the paparazzi or the external attackers, they have inexpensive devices, as I presented in a previous slide, which they can buy like for 100, 200, 300 euros, which is a small investment for them. And they have access to private details of registration data of aircraft. So basically, if there is a star X who owns a private jet on their own name, you can basically correlate the address of the aircraft to the owner name. So you know exactly if it's a private jet, and you can know who owns this private jet, and supposedly there's some stars are, a lot of stars are smart enough to register through other companies. You know that usually this star flies corporate jet X. So you can restrict the subset of potential stars which are flying with that specific aircraft. Okay, and basically you have online all these aircraft registers, and it's public data. Why it's public data, we don't know, because imagine that all vehicles in the countries would be publicly accessible, and everybody on the road can input your license number and see who sits at the wheel of a black window limousine. And surprisingly, they have sites. They even give you for download 39 megs, which uncompresses to 200 megabytes CSV file. This is for USA. And the same applies to Australia. They downloaded the CSV. There's 15,000 aircraft. And if it wasn't enough, I mean, it's a bother for you to go to all the registers. There is a database which contains information from over 45 countries, over 400,000 aircrafts, and it's available on CD-ROM. It costs about 1,000 British pounds. So again, it's not a very big investment. Any of you, if you get that data, please share with me. Thank you. Okay, so I mean, this is currently available. I mean, you can go, just fill the form, pay, get the CD-ROM. If not, if you don't have the money, you just go manually, scavenge for all these downloadable things, and everything is public. You correlate, you basically have everything in clear text, and you correlate, and you can see the impact of, let's say, applying a name tag on some of these aircrafts, right? Okay. Now, by location, the adversary can be adversaries can be if a ground-based, which means that they sit in a van with their transmitters and antenna. It's easier to operate. It's a plus for the criminal, but it's easier to be caught as well, because usually the FAA and FCC in US and other countries, the equivalents, they are very strict about illegal transmission on frequencies, and they have direction finding, and pretty quickly they find the source of the location of a rogue transmitter. So they have capabilities. So it's easier to be caught, and again, it's easier to defend or mitigate against this kind of attack, because while sitting on the ground, an attacker cannot physically, by law of the physics, cannot impersonate an angle of arrival from 2,000 or 30,000 feet. So basically, they have array of antennas which can detect angle of arrival of a given signal, and basically they can detect that a signal has been spoofed by a car with a 10 feet antenna. However, during the risk assessment of this technology, it wasn't very much attention given to the airborne attackers. And the idea is that airborne attackers are a very potential adversary, because the advanced technology in drones and UAVs basically have made a tremendous advance lately, in the last couple of years. So it is very possible that attackers can operate drones or UAVs having these rogue transmitting devices. They can basically emulate or impersonate even angle of arrival, and it's harder to locate because it's not a ground vehicle. And even if it's located, let's say, how do you take down easily a UAV or drone? You need a squadron of UAVs or drones to take down a drone, or things like this. I mean, it complicates a lot of stuff. So sorry? Sorry? I don't know about this, yeah, but I mean, the potential is there for the adversaries to start being represented by drones and UAV remotely controlled. Okay, so we kind of understand our adversaries, and I'll show a showcase where it's an interesting one. Does this crypto in the second line sound familiar to any of you? Like 82,747. Exactly. So we have a winner. So basically, it's identification of Air Force One, which is a Boeing 747 to G4B, whatever, and his registration number is VC25A, or call sign, and it has the ICAO addresses because there are two models. There are two pieces of this, and they have this ADF DF8 and AE2 FF4. So these are 24 bits in the ICAO address fields, which I told you about. So as you can see, this is a screenshot from iPad made by someone from ex-military force. It's an application which literally takes the data from web services, as I shown you, and basically it puts on an iPad, and he spotted this air address code ADFDF48. Okay, so it means that he spotted that Air Force One was transmitting these ADSB messages in clear text. Now they're like, given the assumption that ADSB is clear text and no privacy, there are several open issues based on this scenario, but it expands to any other airplanes. So if the ADSB data which was used to generate this screenshot is true, it was really Air Force One who sent this message. Why does Air Force One shows itself? It's a very high-profile target, and you don't want everybody to know that Air Force One is flying above your house, let's say when it goes to mission in Afghanistan or Iraq or so on, right? When open issues like, should this aircraft broadcast their position or not in the first place? So if it's a yes, wouldn't they become easy target? If it's a no, then they lose all the benefits of the technology. But the idea is this technology should broadcast that data in order to have a higher vision of the air traffic. If, let's say, there is some workarounds where they use fake registration numbers or fake plates in old scenarios where they put fake plates on government cars, then isn't this like a backdoor in the system? Wouldn't this be possible for other aircraft to use the same backdoor and to use fake call sign, fake addresses, and so on? Because it's clear text, it cannot be verified, and so on. So if Air Force One can do this, I mean, these are open issues, and it's most probably that they use the mode 5 crypto, which I've been presenting, and they switch to military mode when flying to Afghanistan or Iraq. But again, the shame is that there's crypto strong technology, or supposed strong because we want to look further into it, which they use but is not given to commercial airlines and so on, for private jets and so on. The other thing is, if the data is false, let's say the data was false to generate this aircraft, I mean, this means that somebody is already spoofing, right? I mean, if it's not a real data, then somebody spoofed the aircraft, the Air Force One. And how do you know that it was spoofed or not? Because you don't have any message authentication, you don't have entity authentication, right? So these are open issues which go to uncertainty, and uncertainty is not very good with safety usually. So basically, these are the kind of scenarios which should be analyzed, and all these are possible because the technology is not secured in the first place. Okay, there's another potential attack, which the attack is based on fake airplane injection, and when you inject a fake airplane into air traffic control, what happens is usually the air traffic control checks the aircraft, and if it's not supposed to be there, it cross-checks with flight plans and any other information, but usually it's not fully automated, or not in all air traffic control this procedure is automated. So basically they have to semi-manually, semi-automatically look up and cross-check what appears on the radar. Is this aircraft supposed to be here in the flight plan? Does it have a path route through this geographic area which we cover by our traffic control? Now, the twist to this attack, I mean, for one plane, the mitigation is clear. We double check, we cross check, we say, okay, it's a fake airplane. But imagine that you do a denial of service on human resource side. Basically, you inject 1 million planes. You don't have so many persons to cross-check the fake planes, whether they have a flight plan through your area. So basically, you can do a human resource type of denial of service. It's a potential attack. It doesn't mean that it happens or there will be no ways to mitigate, but it is potential. However, solving ADSB insecurities will basically nullify this potential. So having a secure ADSB system would nullify the potential, and the attack is not there. Another twist to the same attack is denial of service on the flight space. So basically, when there is an unknown object or unknown aircraft in the space, in general, the procedures are international and they have some local country variations. They basically put the unknown object in air gap. What it means is basically they don't know whether there is a real object there or not, whether it is a bug in radar or not. They basically air gap that space, and they start routing all the airplanes around this spot. So basically this spot is like a wasted area of airspace, right? Because they're not sure. There might be something, and for safety reason, they start routing all the airplanes to not cross that. So imagine putting wide spread area, fake planes. So basically you occupy with fake airplanes all the airspace, and they have to route the planes for other places, and you can exhaust all the airspace for that particular ATC. So usually this generates a short-term conflict alert when you have two airplanes, one close to another. So that's why they try to separate and keep them separate, air gapped until the situation is clarified. Given a solid number of fake airplanes, you see that it's a kind of denial of service. Again, the potential is nullified by having security built into this technology so that not everybody can spoof. Okay, and the problem with ADSB is, as I said, there is ADSB in where airplanes receive data from other airplanes because they don't have a lot of, some of them don't have at all internet connectivity, some of them have very limited. So they cannot verify for any given signal they receive, be it fake or real, whether that signal comes from an airplane which has a flight plane around itself. So basically, you introduce a lot of uncertainty in the pilot section because he cannot verify the true sender and whether there is a real sender sending these messages. Okay, so I'll be closing with the demo. And basically, this is a hardware setup used for generating this demo. The demo is not is still not quite stable, but the proof of concept is there. The idea is that an attacker has software-defined radio, USRP1 in our case, which is very well known, with its prices. Basically, we need some frequencies, which is 1090 megahertz, and which are covered by SBX or WBX daughter boards. We have some DBS RX2, which is used to verify or to receive signals on USRP. And we also use the commercial plain gadget commercial receiver or enthusiast level receiver to verify our attack. And some attenuators to make sure that we are not emitting too much noise and we are under regulation. So here are some quick references. I'll not go through it. After the talk, if you are interested in playing with all this stuff, you can use this as a quick reference and to run these commands. Basically, here is how you capture the data with USRP. This is how you replay the captured data. So basically, capturing some message, you can see it's 1090 megahertz, and then you replay on 1090 megahertz, and so on. To craft the data, there is a need of some math and some MATLAB. You can do in multiple ways. We chose to modify the data, the captured data, in MATLAB because it provides some ppm modulation out of the box. And transmitting the crafted data is the same as replaying the data. You just have some data, modify it, write it to a file, and replay the crafted file. Okay, so, and some other stuff which just help you visualize the data you have in the file to be transmitted over the air and to see whether you have crafted your data and if your signal looks according to the correct modulation. So I'll be going to a very quick demo. It's video, and because there are some both technical and legal issues to do such a demo, we just want to be safe. You'll get the core idea from this demo. So what you have here is, it's a plane plotter. It's a software, one of several software used for displaying data received from the commercial ADSB radars, which I presented initially. So there are some devices. They receive the data, and they send the data to this software, and it shows. So basically, you see that our software is processing the signals from plain gadget commercial radar, and will inject the messages from USRP to commercial radar. So basically, we just one second. So basically, we now capture the real airplane, and now we are replaying it to show the replay attack. And as you can see, that just by replaying it, the plain gadget commercial receiver received it, and it displayed it as ICAO registration number and there is no other information except the altitude in this message. Okay, so just 1 second. Come on. We'll try to look up this airplane, and as you can see, there is a site called airframes.org. It has like some kind of register lookup, and you can see that this airplane is indeed a real airplane by this address, and it has this registration number. It's an Airbus, and it's used by Aeroflot Airlines. Okay, now what we do is we took the captured data, modified it in MATLAB, written the data to the file, and replayed the modified data back to the commercial receiver. So it's exactly the same message. We just replaced the ICAO address. And as you can see, come on, sorry. As you can see, basically, we crafted 4 messages, and you can see that if you're familiar with Hexor language, we have Cafe Babe, we have a dead beef, we have, oops, we have 31337, you know what it means. So, I mean, these are planes which do not exist. If we try to look them up, these are planes which you can easily see they do not exist. So, the possibility of just injecting fake airplanes is quite easy just by taking a real message and crafting it to your needs, or just crafting the whole message from the scratch as you need it, putting the right address, putting the right altitude, putting the right longitude and latitude, and all the speed and everything, the flight ID, and so on. So the possibility is there, and it's quite easy. We described in the quick reference and in the white paper. So yeah, this is some demo details. Basically, these are the raw messages, raw frames, which we used to send. And the first is the original captured and replayed, and then we just modified the ICAO address, and we had to just tweak the parity information, and I wrote some scripts just for any given message, just to calculate the parity and replace it. So it's easy to be done. Some solutions could include verifiable multilateration, and I have 2 more minutes, thank you. We have verifiable multilateration, meaning that multiple ground stations can verify a given aircraft whether it's true. But some analysis document shows that if rather multilateration in all areas is required, basically the most advantages of ADS-B are significantly diminished. So basically it's not technically and economically feasible to enforce this multilateration, because otherwise all the sense of the technology is lost. So it's like you cannot do this solution. There is some other solution of group of aircraft, and basically the idea is and some other ideas is to use lightweight architectures and protocols, open and public key infrastructure, like signatures and so on, and send few bits of the signature and signature keys every frame and reassemble them after some time. Okay, it's not the best, but it could be one of the solutions. So the takeaways are ADS-B is a safety-related mission-critical technology, yet ADS-B lacks minimal security mechanism, and this poses direct threat to safety. And despite ADS-B's tremendous cost in development and implementation, it is easily defeated with under $2,000 US worth of equipment. I mean, the balance is not quite okay. ADS-B, some of the ADS-B assumptions are not technologically up to date because it doesn't account for users will have easy access to radio frequency via software-defined radios, and doesn't account that users will have easy access to UAV and drones. But one of the important takeaways is the SDRs are not the evil. SDRs are good. Government should not ban SDRs. It helps research and development. The problem is ADSB is flawed and the actual root cause problem should be fixed. So some references you can check after the talk, and thank you very much for being here and for bearing with me till the end. If you have any questions, you can find me here or send us an email. I'll be very glad to speak with you. Thank you very much.